Okay, so hey Harpreet, how are you?
I'm good, I'm good. It's Friday.
Good. Yeah, thank you for joining me today. We're going to have a lovely, honest conversation, and we're going to talk all about body image, particularly in reference to social media as well. So hopefully people will enjoy and it will get a chance to, start having a good conversation about some of these issues. Do you want to just tell the viewers a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why this topic particularly resonates with you?
Sure. So my name's Harpreet. I am of Indian heritage. I think the reason why I was really interested in this conversation actually was because I would say as a kid, so where I grew up was a really white area. And I definitely feel like as I was growing up, I had a lot of um, I felt really like conscious about my body image, and I felt really
Mm,
conscious about how I fit in and the fact that I didn't look like everybody else around me.
yeah.
And as I've grown older and sort of started to understand myself better, and all these, there's so many resources out there that you can read,
Mm,
and just started educating myself on so many different topics, from colonialism to race to
mm,
anti-blackness, all these different things.
mm.
I think I've just started to learn a lot more, and that's why I really wanted to sort of join in this conversation, and us to have something that other people can hopefully relate to as well.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of experience professionally as well in terms of what the social media world. So I thought it'd be really good to have a chat about that piece as well because they're not the same, but they overlap and intersect so much, don't they?
Yeah, no, completely. That and what you see on in marketing or in any
Yeah.
communications you receive, magazines, all of that stuff. It's
Mm,
just it's what then develops what how you think of yourself. So yeah, we can definitely talk
mm,
about some of that stuff.
Well, maybe we should just dive in straight away with that, really, because social media is something that most of us are using, especially the millennial generation and generation just under. Like, we're consuming a lot. And at the moment, we're filming in this weird period where we're just coming out of lockdown. But for the past however many weeks, we've all been at home, we've all been consuming a lot, and our social media consumption has, probably gone up by 50%. Um, in relation to social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, what impact do you think social media can have on body image?
So it so I think when you before you look at social media, you need to look at sort of
Mm,
like the wider context of what is the beauty standards that are out there,
yeah.
right? So when you take yourself outside of just social, the beauty standards that we've all come to see and see as kind of like the mainstream images that you would normally see in a magazine or on TV are very Eurocentric. They
Mm,
are all usually white women, usually sort of blonde, blue-eyed, that kind of look. And you'll see that
mm,
in, like I said, in magazines, on TV adverts, in books, like any form of like TV shows that you'd be watching. The main leading lady would usually be white. Um, so if you take that kind of ideal and then you think about social, the way that social has now worked is that it accentuates that ideal. And
mm,
that's either through the influencers that you see that do really well, that sort of pop up on your feed, or whether that's through shows. If you think about Love Island, for example,
yeah.
that's a key one for me, that
Mm,
sort of promotes a certain ideal of a body type, an
mm,
image for men and women, and then those people have sort of social media accounts now, and people
mm,
can interact with them directly. So you think of
mm,
all those thousands of people. Not only are they seeing, people like me and you that are seeing, or small children are seeing, these people who they really idolize because they love the program and they love the drama and the entertainment of the program, but
mm,
then blurring into their day-to-day lives, because then you
yeah.
look at social media and they're seeing them posting like their best life. I'm
Mm,
doing this, I'm doing that. And I think what happens is when you see those images again and again and again, and that repetitiveness, that's when it starts to go into your mind. It goes into your
yeah.
subconscious. It goes into who you see yourself as a person. And if you
Mm,
don't match that, then you think there's something wrong with you. And I
mm,
do think there's some responsibility when it comes to social media, one for influencers, but also for the social media companies, really. Like the images, sometimes it's not even right. They're not even, if you think about shape size, for example,
mm,
some of these people are super skinny, and you
mm,
think, that's not attainable. That's actually not normal. That's actually not healthy. But it's plastered all over. And I just think about myself as well in that situation of me. If I was seeing that stuff as a young 13-year-old who had stopped a growth spurt, and I was still, munching my food, and I was a little bit chubby, and I felt really self-conscious, I would have felt even worse seeing that.
Yeah.
It would have really affected me. So I think you got to look from it outside, where has that come from, and then how that is really made even bigger with social.
I agree. So it definitely is sort of looking at the broader society, and then social media becomes a kind of microcosm of that. And then it's even more insidious because it's with us all the time. It's in our homes, it's in our pocket, and we're just constantly seeing that. And I think, for example, with things like filters and airbrushing apps and things like that, these are commonplace in the everyday person. Whereas prior, we only had to deal with that with, the glossy magazines and the Vogue and things like that. Whereas now it's on a day-to-day life. So not only are people comparing themselves with others, they're comparing themselves with previous pictures on Instagram or wherever of them that don't even really exist.
Yeah.
So I wonder what that does to the cycle in our minds as well. There's been a lot out as well about the body positivity movement. I'm sure you've seen lots of things about that. And I mean, I wonder what your thoughts are on the body positivity movement. Is it working well to improve people's body image? What do you think about it?
I think it's doing some good, definitely. It's like raising awareness of it, and I've definitely seen that. Even you can see in adverts such as sort of like with Boots or with Dove, or Dove did have that bad advert as well. So but like the stuff in terms of shape and all that kind of thing, they were really hot on that stuff. I think it's really, really good, but I do think there's something around culture and our bigger culture which hasn't changed really. For me, I know I've already mentioned about Love Island, but like, why every time I would see, I was so glad it's not on this summer, because every time I would see the lineup of people who would come on there, a show as big as that gets as much attention as that, they have a responsibility to make sure that they're representing people in all their different shapes and sizes and colors and all of that. But they don't. They make it pretty much white, really skinny girls, like maybe big boobs. Men have all got 6-packs. It's like, and I just wonder, like, why do they do that every single year? They bring out that you literally could line them all up in together and be like, you all look like you're related somehow, or you're from the same, you're cut from the same cloth. That's kind of how I see it. And I think if that doesn't change, that's not going to have the impact we really need to see, especially for the younger generation growing up with social and this, being so exposed to this culture all the time. I'd want it to have a bigger impact than what it's currently having.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. And also sometimes I worry about the body positivity message. Of course, I believe we should feel positive and empowered to love ourselves in the current body that we have and the skin we're in. But sometimes, and this is particularly observed on social media, people who can be described as body positive almost have a mold and a set image also. So in order to be seen as body positive, it's now like, okay, I can wear a bikini whenever I want, I can have quote unquote roles and post and have bright hair and do this and do that. But it's just as simple for someone who chooses to dress conservatively due to cultural or religious reasons. They can be body positive. Someone who chooses not to wear a bikini can be body positive. Body positivity can mean so many things, whereas I worry that we're actually, again, with the body positivity movement, seeing a very narrow margin of someone can be seen to be fitting that model, which sort of perpetuates the problem. So it's interesting to have a think about that. I think if we were really positive, we'd just see a range of bodies, we'd see a range of skin tones, we'd see a range of abilities, and that would be it. But we're still not there yet.
And it wouldn't be called body positive because it would just
Yeah.
be people's bodies.
Yeah.
It's just how it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've still got a bit of work to do there.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
definitely.
something we've spoken about quite a bit, and I know that you've done quite a lot of work
Yeah.
around in your sessions as well, is colorism,
Yes.
which is a problem in many different communities, but also globally. Do you want to tell us a bit about what colorism is and how that can impact on body image?
Yeah, sure. So colorism is where basically the way I would describe it, it might not be the technical term, but how I would
Mm,
describe it is that if you've got like a color scale of white on one end, dark brown on the other end, when you're across that scale, people think if you're closer to white, that you're
mhm,
more beautiful, maybe you're
mhm,
more professional, you're better.
mhm.
There's this ideal again that so that being closer to white means you're just a better person. And I think
Mm,
what happens with colorism, where it really manifests itself, is within um, Black or brown communities. So, like, I definitely know within my own, Sikh communities, Asian communities, that really is prevalent. So, from my own experience, I remember when I first went to university. So, like I mentioned before, I grew up in a really white area. So,
yeah.
it was always like, oh, you've got an all year round tan and all this sort of stuff. And in a strange way, it actually made me really like, yeah, I'm brown and I love my brown skin, and
Mm,
I love that I can wear bright colors and all this other stuff. So when I went to university, I was really surprised when somebody said to me, "Oh, you're so fair," and I was like,
mm,
"What do you mean by fair? Like, what?
mm,
I'm brown. I don't know what
yeah.
you're talking about." So I think as I found out, and as I sort of went through university, and I went to Brunel, is a lot of Asian,
Yeah.
it's a very mixed sort of like uni. What I found is that it was a real thing. Like, people were actually trying to make themselves look lighter, even if they were
Yeah.
darker skinned sort of Asian girls, or guys even, and guys would go for girls who were of a lighter skin tone. And
Mm,
that's something, like I said, that's never hadn't crossed my mind, and it really came as a shock. And then when I got married, it was another thing of, I'd noticed, I started noticing the community, like especially old aunties would always say, that person, she's like Sawney and Gaudy, and those two words is basically like, she's nice and she's white,
mm,
and she looks lighter. And I remember thinking, what? Like, what?
yeah.
Why? You're actually judging somebody on their skin tone. You're actually relating it directly to their beauty. You're not
Yeah.
looking, I know we have lots of problems in lots of different ways, but just skin tone, it was
Yeah.
really surprising.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my experience of it.
Yeah. And it was interesting, the perspective, the difference from you being in your hometown to being at university, and how people perceived you based on your skin tone, which is obviously the same, but perceived so differently in different environments.
Yeah.
And I remember getting into a discussion with someone who, mentioned about certain countries being backwards in terms of colorism and things like that.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important for people to understand that colorism isn't in itself backwards. It's what's been imposed
Yeah.
onto countries by colonial history. So even, for example, the terms black and brown, of course, I refer to myself as black,
Yeah.
but really, in between Asia, Africa, and Latin America, we're melanated. We're all shades of brown.
Yeah.
But it was colonial rule that decided to define us as differently.
Yeah.
White, brown, and black. And in order to make black the bottom of the pecking order, so therefore everyone is trying to get as far away from blackness as possible. But even these terms, they're not real, and they don't make any sense. But the legacy has been left over, and even though it may seem arbitrary and backwards, back in the day, to be white was a thing that would save your life. That would mean you wouldn't get ill treatment. That would mean you wouldn't get beaten up, persecuted, enslaved.
Mhm.
So it makes sense that our intergenerational trauma, part of us, still clamors to
Yeah.
get towards that whiteness. But we
Yeah.
have to retrain the brain, don't we?
Absolutely. And I think the more I've been learning about, you mentioned that the colonialism, if I think of India as an example where, there was that colonial rule. And again, if you were closer to white, you was, maybe seen as better. I think the
Mm,
thing that really is prevalent within the community is the fact that if there's a lot of like anti-blackness essentially within the community, where they're just so like, we do not want to be, we don't even want our kids to marry somebody who's black, because they're worried about how their kids will look. Is that again, it's that sort of your selection process of selection, and the only reason that's ever happened is going back to, say, the colonial times, is because essentially we've been brainwashed to think, oh, you're good, brown people, and it's that divide and conquer mechanism again. You're not the same as them because you're lighter, you're more like us, even though that we were treated really badly. No one seems to really understand that. Is that it still very much is no, come with us. we're treating you a bit like, you're okay, we'll kind of be your friend, but we're not really going to be your friend. And those guys over there who are black, they're really bad. So it's kind of that thinking, I think, sometimes that sits in people's at the very back of their mind. And then that's why, like I said, that it comes to marriage choices, even who your friends are, all those different things, all the things that you see in terms of racism from if you think like white versus black, you would see with brown versus black in the community. And I don't think that always gets spoken about. And even for young children growing up, if they are of a darker skin tone and within the brown range of colours, people would actually be like, oh, poor thing, she's dark. I feel sorry for people. It's these attitudes that really need to be spoken about. And like those, I've already had conversations with my parents about it and said, well, what you just said there was really wrong, and why you about your skin tone. Even if you go on holiday and you tan, people say, look how dark I've gone. And you think, no, that's not right. And I called them up on it and said, well, why are you saying that? Why are you mentioning your skin tone? And she's a bit like, oh, I don't know, and gets really awkward about it. But I think it's our responsibility as a community and as people to call people out on it.
I agree. And to call people out on it and to look at our own internalized feelings about the way we view ourselves, the way we view others, and colorism. I am of a much lighter skin tone than my two older sisters, and the way they've been treated in the world has been quite differently to the way that I've been treated, especially because I came up in the age where, not quite white, not quite black, lighter skin, the sort of mixed race or Latino look became quite popular. So in my sort of teenage years to early 20s, I was of a palatable skin tone for mass media, and that's not right either. So I think when it comes to colorism, we need to, just like we said, be showing a range of people. End of. Not highlighting, not labeling it something. We just need to see the diversity of people that exist as humans across the board.
Yeah. Sure. The other thing you talk about mass media as well, it just came to mind was these products of Fair and Lovely that so if anybody doesn't know, they're basically like skin lightening creams. And literally the adverts are like Fair and Lovely, and it shows up as someone's face, and that one side is lighter than the other. There was another one for men, and I think what's, again, like going back to India, and we talk about influencers at the beginning about social, it's the Bollywood stars that promote these products. So they are the people who are promoting, and you think of like Bollywood as an industry for you, if you match against, Hollywood and whatever. Within Bollywood, they would make sure that the main sort of characters, etc., are really fair. And then even hiring now people who are white to play those roles. So I just think about, I saw a video of I think maybe it was a little girl maybe from South India or Sri Lanka or something, and it was on social, and she was sort of saying, I hope when I get married I'm as fair as that person or whatever. And they were like asking her, oh, don't you think you're beautiful now as you are? And she was like, no, I'm not beautiful. But she just said, it's so like, no.
Right, just an acceptance.
That's not right. I think these poor young, kids growing up in a world where all they're seeing is, one type of skin tone, or one type of body shape, or one type of whatever. Whatever angle you look at it from, it's causing them, you know, body dysmorphia. It's making them feel uncomfortable about themselves. You know, that can lead to depression, anxiety, how well you do in your career, that confidence that you just walk around and you know that you're accepted. So yeah, so I think there's lots of things that come out from what is essentially a very colonial impact to the world.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, of course, we could probably talk about this all day, and each area is like it's its own topic. But just to circle back to where we kind of started, which was about body image and how we feel about ourselves and how we move through the world, what would be your sort of top tip that you would give to someone, so maybe if they were struggling with their body image at the moment? I know a lot of people have been worried, particularly in lockdown, in terms of bodies changing, how we're moving or not moving.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone that's struggling with some of these issues?
I think a couple of tips I would give is, firstly, when it comes to social, follow people who look like you.
Yeah.
And especially the ones who stay far away from the ones who are excessive exercisers, or the ones which are trying to promote, oh, just drink this slim fast drink and lose all your weight. It's not natural, it's not normal. So just making sure that the people you are following, the influencers you are seeing, therefore that, you know, are either body positive or are people that you think, yeah, you know what, you're like me. Because I think that intrinsically then reaffirms your own self-belief. And I know definitely I've done the same. I went through my Instagram list about a year ago and I was like, remove, because they were all like really they're really skinny women, and I was thinking, why am I following these people? And it's even the clothes they wear and the way they style themselves. I'd be thinking, well, I can't relate to that, and there's thousands of influencers out there. I'll just find people who look like me. So that was the first thing I sort of did. The other bit I would say is chuck the scales.
Chuck the scales.
Chuck the scales.
The scales. Team no scales. I'm 100% with you on this one.
Yeah.
For chucking the scales.
They don't bring anything to your life. I don't think I've weighed myself. So I made a conscious decision probably, I don't know, like 7-8 years ago, because I was getting really frustrated. So basically what was happening is I would do all this exercise, and even from when I was young, and even I'm working through some of this stuff. So, you know, I'm not immune to, you know, all the things that we've been talking about. But I remember thinking, well, I've been doing exercise, I feel really good in my body, and then I'd go onto like a scale and I'd be like, oh, I've like put on weight. And then I started thinking, but when you have muscle, you do gain weight. But I feel really good in myself. So why do I need these scales to reaffirm like, why should I be looking at a number? I just want to know that I actually feel good and confident in my body. So that's why I'd say chuck the scales, because otherwise you get way too caught up in, you know, numbers, and that's not right. You should be thinking about how you feel. So that would be what I'd say. I think also just be really kind to yourself. And I remember reading something where people said, instead of, say, you know, we all have it, we all want to look good in different ways, and they'll be like, oh, you know what, I want to have people. I think that in this particular article it was talking about how people really hate their body, so they'll see stuff in their body and be like, I hate that part of my body, I absolutely feel this hate towards it. It was like, instead of doing that, put love towards it. Be like, you know what, I love, you know, my little hips, or I love the fact that I've got, you know, bigger thighs, or I love the fact that, and just putting love towards your body, instead of so much hate and being like, I need to like do 20 press ups and this, that, and the other. And that's one that I've really kept with me, that I tried to make sure that I do that, because I definitely, you know, growing up was like, oh, in my back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I was the fat kid. That's how I think it haunts me today. And I had so many horrible comments as a kid, from family members and all the rest of it. So for me, I try to exercise that in being like, no, don't think that, think this instead. So
I think these are really, really, really positive and like sort of quite actionable tips. Not always easy to do. For example, it's easier to be horrible to ourselves, but it's actually quite simple. We have to change the language and speak to ourselves as we would our best friend. I would never tear someone down the way that I have teared myself down when being harsh on myself, looking at my body, for example. And like you said, the same things that we're talking about, I have also struggled with in the past, which is why I also decided to get rid of scales probably in around 2013, 14. You know, I've just had enough. And also when we think about measures of health like BMI, body mass index, different ethnicities hold muscle in different ways, have different proportions of muscle versus body fat. So even the measures that we're looking at are culturally biased. So these are going to have a big impact. Something that I often say that people can try, which might seem quite out there, is to be naked as much as possible, within reason, of course, and in a comfortable and safe and private space. But I try to look at myself naked every single day after I get out of the shower, and I try and just look at it. Just look at it in the same way that I'd look at a tree. I'd look at my mug on the table, not to analyze or to assess, not even to pick out good parts or bad parts, just to know that it just is. And as I practice that every day, I know whether it changes or it doesn't, which it will inevitably change because that's how life, we have seasons, we change, we move, but it just is. And when I accept that it just is, I'm no longer placing that judgment. And when I'm no longer placing that judgment, it's a lot easier to look at myself in that kind of nurturing way that you described. So I would say everyone should get a full length mirror. And
naked Sundays.
Exactly, naked Sundays. I like it. Well, thank you so much for sort of sharing some of your thoughts, your opinions, and the experiences that you've had. It's been really lovely to hear from you.
I love these conversations. I think we
Me
need
too.
to have more of them, and we need
Yeah.
more people to just, like you said, just be with themselves.
Yeah. So if people want to continue on the conversation or find out a little bit more about your work, where can they find you?
So happily for anybody, if they wanted to, have this conversation in more detail, I'm on LinkedIn, so Harpreet Nandha. I don't think there's many Nandas out there, so pretty easy to find.
I'll find you.
Yeah, you'll find me. I have a public profile, so get in touch.
Lovely. All right. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully the next time we catch up, it will be in person.
Yeah.
I know. All right. Take care, Harps.
See ya.
Bye.